What is up, Steelers Nation? Thank you so much for jumping on to another episode of Steelers Talk. I'm Noah Streckbine, joined always by my main man, Jacob Punturi. Find us on youtube.com/All Steelers Talkers. Subscribe anywhere you get your podcast. The Pittsburgh Steelers, busy day for the black and gold as TJ Watt's trade price, quote unquote, has been revealed. One veteran corner has some bad news when it comes to a lingering knee injury. We'll dive into if we are concerned about that one. And then Jaylen Ramsey, a lot of conversation revolving around the trade between the Steelers and the Miami Dolphins with the corner and what it means. Well, one Dolphins beat writer reported that things could get real nasty for the Pittsburgh Steelers because, well, they got real nasty in the city of Miami. It's a good one here in the Berg. Beautiful day after a wildly torrential downpour for about 4 minutes this morning, which I really thought every car was just going to start floating down the street. I started building the ark in the backyard. It didn't work. It flooded away immediately, but we're good. It's a beautiful one now. How you feeling, my friend?
Feeling good, feeling happy to be here. As Noah knows, this morning started off on a very rough note for me. My war has escalated with Duquesne Light, and so I'll leave it at that for now because the best laid plans are kept in secret. But I'm doing okay. I'm doing great. I'm happy to be talking Steelers football with you as always. But yeah, man, lots of crazy stuff. A Tuesday afternoon, I did not expect to be, this entertained by the topics you wanted to talk about today, but nonetheless,
I agree.
I am.
I agree. July 8th, it's been a busy summer for the Pittsburgh Steelers. It's kind of wild how busy the summer's been for the Pittsburgh Steelers. I hope Duquesne Light, you know what I mean? I hope their light goes out for a minute just because of what they've done to you over the last couple of weeks here. And, with that, we'll talk some Pittsburgh Steelers football. TJ Watt, let's start there. The trade price for the superstar edge rusher has been somewhat revealed. I mean, we've talked about this a little bit here, a little bit there. It's not that the Pittsburgh Steelers are looking to trade TJ Watt and still the outlook is that he's going to get a deal with the Pittsburgh Steelers. It's going to surpass Myles Garrett. They're going to pay the guy. He's going to be here by week 1, although Adam Schefter said today, come August 8th, you never know. August 8th is so early. So early. If August 8th rolls around and TJ Watt still doesn't have a deal, I'm not going to care about anything other than August 9th. I could care less if TJ Watt doesn't have a deal. September 8th, yeah, there's a conversation to be had, but I really think that you bring it right up till week 1, day 1, and then we have a conversation. In the meantime, TJ Watt may at some point get some trade offers. If he hasn't already, the Pittsburgh Steelers will likely, again, if they haven't got some phone calls from some NFL teams. Well, according to NFL Network's Tom Pelissero, it's not going to be what we think it is. It's not going to be the trade compensation, the big, massive package that everybody is tossing out there. Everybody talks, first-round pick. People say first-round pick and Terry McLaurin. Go get Chris Olave. Send him to the Bengals for Trey Hendrickson. I saw A.J. Brown today. I saw Pittsburgh Steelers for A.J. Brown. TJ Watt for A.J. Brown. Now, don't get me wrong. The article was titled Steelers Trade TJ Watt to Eagles. And I said, I don't think that's a factual thing. But that's where we are at this point in the summer. According to Tom Pelissero, it's not going to be anywhere close to that. He said this on the Rich Eisen show the other day, quote, "What can you get at this point for TJ Watt? For one thing, a 2026 draft pick doesn't help you, but even if you were getting a 2026 draft pick, is somebody giving up a first-round pick for or more for TJ Watt?" He continued by saying, again, never say never, but when the Bengals were, at Trey Hendrick's request, shopping Trey Hendrickson earlier this offseason, they were asking for a first-round pick. They weren't being offered a first-round pick for a guy who led the league in sacks last year and has like 35 sacks over the last 2 seasons. TJ Watt, in my eyes, has a better career than Trey Hendrickson over the years, is a guy that at any given day you would probably say, I'd take him over Trey Hendrickson. I get Trey Hendrickson's numbers the last 2 seasons has looked really good, led the league in sacks last year. Still, TJ's a bona fide Hall of Famer without any questions. And at this point, is still a guy that you're not super worried about when it comes to turning around a somewhat off season last year. Not getting a first round pick for him doesn't surprise me, to be quite honest. I don't look at TJ Watt at 31 years old as a guy that NFL teams are going to be super happy to give up a first round pick and some to go out and get if guys like DK Metcalf, who's 28 years old and a superstar, go for a second round pick. If Jaylen Ramsey and Minkah Fitzpatrick are getting swapped out, plus Jonnu Smith, it doesn't feel like these guys are going for massive deals. If Trey Hendrickson isn't getting a first round offer, that means TJ Watt certainly isn't getting a first round offer because, well, they're 2 months apart and Trey Hendrickson's a lot cheaper. And I think that comes into play here. Does it surprise you? And do you believe it? Because I think that's the second part of this question is it surprising? But do you look at Tom Pelissero's words and say, yeah, I hear what you're coming from and I agree with it, or yeah, I hear what you're coming from, but I don't feel the same way?
Yeah, look, I don't agree with the overall sentiment of what TJ Watt's value would be in the trade market. I totally understand where Tom Pelissero is coming from here. The trade market is very underwhelming. And I think the past few months have sort of spoken to that and highlighted that especially. So yeah, I can believe that there is a scenario going around right now where there is no good trade offers for TJ Watt if the Steelers would even get to the point of entertaining a phone call about legitimate trade offers. That being said, it's not that surprising to hear that his trade value wouldn't warrant a first round pick in return. I believe he's certainly worth that, even at a 31-year-old edge rusher. He has 11 and a half sacks last year at 19 and a half the season before, if I'm correct, or 19. So yeah, I think that combined with the extensive resume behind it would still warrant a first round pick. But I think this overall, what Tom's words really speak to is just sort of the lack of interest in the trade market and how it's sort of not maximizing the return for the players that any organization has wanted. I would, ask you to point me to any trade that has gotten the team that's given up the better player a return that they've really, really liked immediately. Yes. That isn't a boatload of draft picks to move up, or something like that. So yeah, I think the Steelers are kind of between a rock and a hard place. If they want to trade him, if that's the move that they think is the best way forward, they're not going to get a very good return for him. And at least that's what Tom Pelissero is making it sound like.
Yeah, I agree. First off, Tom Pelissero or Tom Pelissero? How you say Pelissero, huh?
I'm probably wrong, right?
No, if we've learned anything over the years, it's that I'm definitely wrong. I am never the guy that pronounces last names correctly. Ever. It took me at least an episode before I said, all right, Jake's not correcting me, which means for the last 3 years, I have been pronouncing his last name correctly. That is how we go about things. I look at the Pittsburgh Steelers should get a first round pick for TJ Watt. They shouldn't be shopping him at all. And at the end of the day, that's the conversation to have is there should be no trade negotiations for TJ Watt. Pay the man. He's worth every single penny that you're going to give him, plus some a little bit. And if you trade him, just like Tom says, just like you say, it doesn't matter what you get in return. Your season in 2025 is no longer valid. You are not a Super Bowl contender once you lose to TJ Watt. And yes, you could replace TJ Watt. You could look at it and say, next year for a first round pick, that's good value. You could look at TJ Watt now and say, you're expandable. Then let's move on. And is it going to crush your franchise long-term? No, it's not. But is it going to crush your franchise this season? Yes. And everything you've done as an organization has said that this season you are all in. This season you are trying to win a Super Bowl. Well, the last thing you do when trying to win a Super Bowl is get rid of your best player, no matter what you can give up for TJ Watt. So I'm sorry, but I think I'm paying him, and I don't think I have any questions. I want to ask this, though. If you pay him, okay, TJ Watts gets paid. The Steelers go off. They win a Super Bowl. Let's say dreams are made. We're hanging out in Disney World next year on the floats. Not really, because there's no chance they'd invite us to the floats, but we'd be hanging out in Disney. TJ signed for $41 million a year. He goes off. He's got 19 sacks in 2025. Steelers are in rebuild mode now. Do you think his trade value next year is higher than what it would be this year? Not saying I would trade him. I wouldn't. I'm just asking the question.
Yes, I think. Yeah, again, agreed with you with the overall sentiment that that's not the avenue the Steelers are hoping this goes down. But yes, I think even if they sign him to a huge contract, even if they sign him to a deal that surpasses the one Myles Garrett gets in guaranteed money, yearly salary, whatever, if they do that and TJ Watt still goes off, it absolutely skyrockets his trade value next summer. Now, whether the Steelers would want to capitalize on that or even have any plans to, do that, I have no idea. But I would say even at 32 at that point, coming off a 19 sack season, return to elite form, return to dominance for TJ Watt, I think that trade value definitely, if it's not at its highest right now, I don't know how that situation wouldn't make it be its highest that it could be for a 32-year-old edge rusher.
I agree. I think it just goes down every single year. But at the same time, you have one crazy season. There's somebody out there that's going to call. There's somebody out there that would say, yeah, you know what? We are going to make one insane. And I'll be real here. If the Steelers got an offer next year that was unbelievable, there's a conversation to be had that I think Omar would have. But I don't think that conversation would be had this year. I don't. I just think that they understand that if you trade TJ Watt, your Super Bowl aspirations in 2025 are out the window. And therefore, no matter what you're going to get, and I'm glad that it's not a first-round pick. I truly am. Because if the Steelers were to trade TJ Watt, truthfully, I would want them to fail in that trade. Because I would just look at it as disrespect. I would say you are. I'm always pro player. Always. I will never be pro team. Sorry, can't do it. I'm unbiased. I got to be unbiased unless we're talking about the Cleveland Browns sometimes. I'm unbiased, and I know these guys to a place where I root for them more than I root for the Steelers. I don't root for the Steelers. You know what I mean? Do I want success for the Steelers? Yes, because I know these guys, but I root for them first always. And if you trade TJ Watt, I think it is a massive slap in the face to not just your organization, but the greatest player you've had in the last generation. And sorry, but you just don't trade that. Maybe outside of Antonio Brown, that's an argument to be made, but you just don't trade. You just don't trade that guy. That is a good question. Where would you rank in the TJ Watt era? Where would you put him? Where would you? There's Ben, there's AB, there's TJ, right? I think there's Cam. I think those are the big three. If you really look at it and say those were the guys. There's Marquise Pouncey, I guess. You could toss him in there as well. Sure. Where would you put him?
Sure. I think TJ is probably 2. I think AB, if you're including, the totality of his career, is got to be the number 1 player of this era of the last, let's say, maybe 20, 15 years. Yeah. Even Ben, because after 2009, 2010, there's no more Super Bowls. Yes. Antonio Brown in that time span has, puts up this generationally defining run of receptions and receiving yards. I think just even with that record-breaking sack season TJ Watt has, as we've talked about before, I think AB is probably my number 1 of this current generation. TJ Watt's a tight number 2, though.
I agree. Like, I think they're 1, 2, but AB, man, AB, it's tough because AB is. He's a guy. He's a guy for sure.
It's hard to take the blinders off of, and take the lens off of how we see him right now, everything going on, and everything that happened after he left the Steelers. But dear Lord, that run that he was on and how productive he was of a wide receiver with the Steelers. Yes. I think the farther removed we get from all of that in his playing days, the more we will look back on it and be like, that was just a very special run for a wide receiver.
Yeah, I agree. And there's a lot of people in the comments right now, like tossing out names, being like, what about this guy? What about this guy? It's just since TJ arrived. It is not, it is not before when TJ, it was since TJ arrived. That is
the last 10 years.
It's the last 10 years. That is the question. All right, let's talk Darius Slay. That's the next one. The Pittsburgh Steelers veteran corner is set to start, we think. I don't really know how it's going to go. I think that's one of the most important questions when we get to training camp is what does the secondary actually look like? And Darius Slay is going to be a big part of that unless he's injured because there are concerns that he is. NFL insider for Fox Sports Radio, Adam Kaplan, said that 34-year-old's knee could cause some issues after he underwent arthroscopic surgery in 2023. Quote, as I'm told, one of his knees is a concern. He actually had arthroscopic surgery in late 2023. He's got great length and he was super fast coming out of Mississippi State. You have to wonder how well he could run. You never know when a guy is going to lose it, and they could lose it at any instant. I mean, I got to be honest. Surgery in 2023 doesn't concern me much. If it was surgery in 2024, maybe, but this is 2 years removed. You played pretty well last season. And if he gets slower, I'm going to chalk it up to being 34 years old, not the fact that he underwent surgery 2 seasons ago. That wasn't a major surgery. Still concerns there. Do you view this as a level that draws your interest, or one that you could surpass right now?
It's so weird to single out the knee as the concern. Again, arthroscopic surgery from 2023, that's the prevailing concern right now regarding this 34-year-old cornerback, not the concussion he sustained last year, not the groin injury he sustained last year and came back from, not the ankle injury he sustained last year, the arthroscopic knee surgery from 2 years ago. That's what's going to slow this man down. Yeah, I guess I'm really concerned, Noah. No, I'm not at all, and I don't understand what this is. Maybe he shows up to camp and it is a lingering issue, right? Like who knows? But beyond that, I cannot see a very minor procedure from 2 years ago being something that significantly hampers him in 2025. If the wheels fall off, the wheels have fallen off. It wasn't because of the surgery 2 years ago.
Yes, it's so hard. You can't say anything else. Like, you can't, unless he sustains another injury. The fact that he's 34 years old playing cornerback is the only thing I care about. Now, do I care about that? Yeah, it's super concerning that Darius Slay, who I think is a better corner than a lot of people make out to be. Like, I got a lot of people being like, especially when they first signed, why wouldn't you go get Dante Jackson again? Darius Slay is a better corner than Dante Jackson. That's because that's the case, but he's still 34 years old, and that concern is certainly there. I mean, they had it with Patrick Peterson, who was good, but arguably lost his stuff, and that's why he hasn't been in the NFL since then and eventually retired after not playing for a season. I could see the same thing with Darius Slay, but because of a slight surgery, a small minor surgery 2 off seasons ago, I'm supposed to stress out about if this guy's still got the juice left. No. I just don't think that's the case. Now, adding Jaylen Ramsey adds a security blanket that to me makes this even more useless, because you have Jaylen Ramsey, you have Corey Trice, you have Brandon Echols, you have Juan Thornhill. You probably are going to get another safety at some point this offseason, and Darius Slay shouldn't have to play every single snap. What is your workload for him? If you're the head coach of the Pittsburgh Steelers, which I get it, he doesn't care what we say, he doesn't. But if you're the head coach of the Pittsburgh Steelers, how are you running this 3-man rotation to make sure that 34-year-old Darius Slay, who might have a ticking time bomb on his knee, which Juju Smith-Schuster had 2 years ago, no, still nothing's happened, doesn't blow up by the end of the season?
I think we're just going to I think we're going to see a healthy rotation between the three. I think the plan is for all three to be on the field a lot. I don't think the Steelers are going to be in their base package, their base 3-4 package a ton. And I think whether it's Ramsey playing safety, like we've kind of talked about a little bit, and maybe we'll see more of once camp opens, or Ramsey playing in the slot, I think they're going to keep Slay on the outside pretty much all the time. Now, when they go into their 3-4, I think it probably makes more sense if Ramsey's not playing safety to be the other corner opposite Joey Porter Jr. Yes. But again, that's all dependent on if they bring in another safety, or if Darius Slay does have any injuries, because the only minor concern that this sort of evokes is, as an older player, obviously, like, nagging injuries are a concern. So it just makes me wonder, is there anything else, beyond sort of the couple of injuries he sustained over the last couple of years that is still a problem. Like I understand the arthroscopic knee surgery is not really going to be it, but it does raises an ear up a little bit. Like, okay, maybe there's something to look out for once training camp starts. But yeah, beyond that, I see the Steelers, getting back to your question, I see the Steelers really utilizing all three a lot. And if I was the head coach, I think that's probably the best use of those three defensive backs.
Honestly, I'd move them around as well. Like, I'd test everybody at every place. If maybe not Joey Porter Jr., but if Darius Slay could play safety, great. He's 34 years old. Let him play safety. That's where he should be playing. If Jaylen plays safety better, great. Jaylen's your guy. But you have options with those two to play both positions and to make it work. I think the Steelers really want Jaylen to become a safety, although I also think it makes a lot of sense if Jaylen's an outside guy because he's here for more than a season, and that's a great duo to have in Jaylen Ramsey and Joey Porter Jr. for the next 2-3 years. But I think Darius Slay could play on the inside, which I'd feel okay about after Jaylen Ramsey. I think he could play safety, which I'd feel okay about after the trade for Jaylen Ramsey, and I'd feel good with Jaylen at both of those spots as well. I do think that you're spot on with Darius is going to be the outside guy and Jaylen's going to move around a little bit, but I look at it as you have options, and options are really good this time of year because last year the Steelers didn't have options. It was Beanie Bishop in the slot, Dante Jackson and Joey Porter on the outside, and guys like Darius Rush trying to make an impact on this team. Yeah, exactly. Shout out to good old Darius Rush. I think this year you have options, and those options, Brandon Echols is another name too. Brandon Echols works in the slot, put him in the slot and have a rotation of guys that you can trust. Corey Trice in the slot as well, that I think makes a lot of sense for a team that just has options where we sit here today, which brings up another point here, and that's Jaylen Ramsey, who, look it, I'm going to talk about this, but this is just like us talking about George Pickens. They should listen, but they're not going to. And I think we're going to fall into the same category on the other side as I talk about this one. Miami Dolphins beat writer. Oh, I'm losing a name here. For the Miami Sun Centennial, Dave Hyde said this on why the Dolphins traded Ramsey and why the Pittsburgh Steelers should be super concerned about the trade that they got, the acquisition that they got. Quote, let's start here. The Miami Dolphins won't miss cornerback Jaylen Ramsey. They won't miss him regularly showing up for practices as the rest of the team was in the middle of stretching. They won't miss how he constantly undermined defensive coordinator Vic Fangio 2 years ago and coach Mike McDaniel last season in a manner that spread like a bad odor through the larger team. I mean, the Steelers have gotten rid of bad guy after bad guy after bad guy. You do have to make one part of this very clear, that if he is a guy that's showing up late to practice after they just got rid of the guy that was showing up late to practice, Mike Tomlin and Omar Khan need to figure their stuff out because this is not okay. Are you concerned? Are you concerned that the Miami Dolphins and the Tyreek Hill and the Tua and the Raheem Mostert and the Terrion Armstead and the Jonnu Smith and everybody else who's talked smack on the Miami Dolphins since playing for the Miami Dolphins is an interest of concern as he comes to Pittsburgh?
Not right now. I feel like I would be doing a disservice to him to immediately assume that he's going to come in and cause problems. I can't speak to, what was going on down at the beat, in Miami the last couple of years. I think it's very well established that Jaylen Ramsey is a very intense player, a very fiery player, a very vocal player. I don't think any of that was especially different or, outside of the norm for him with the Dolphins. And I don't expect that to be any different now that he's here in Pittsburgh. That being said, I think it would be crazy to immediately assume that he is going to come in here, stir the pot, cause problems, be a disruption. The Steelers are a very regimented team. Like, again, you just pointed out that the Steelers, were very quick to get rid of someone who was not able to fall in line with what the rest of the team was trying to do in terms of like being regimented and scheduled and on a practice routine and things like that. So I don't think Jaylen Ramsey, especially as one of the elder statesmen, let's call him, of the defense this year, and one of the more accomplished players, is going to come in and set such a bad sort of example and make such a poor first impression that before he even plays a game, we're already talking about him being a distraction. Could that happen? Sure, I guess, but I'm not concerned about it right now, and I would not really anticipate myself growing more concerned about this until I hear about it firsthand, or if I see it kind of affecting the play once the season begins. But for right now, no, I'm just excited to see him get in the mix with the rest of the defense and see what they cook up.
Yeah, right. Like, again, let me rattle off the names here of guys who've talked smack on the Miami Dolphins over the last couple of years. Raheem Mostert, Terrion Armstead, Tyreek Hill, who's still here, who said he's leaving like 4 times. Jaylen Ramsey, Jonnu Smith, the list just goes on and on. It just, they have a long history since Mike McDaniel has arrived of guys really not appreciating the Miami Dolphins. And maybe that's just the thing. Now, in Pittsburgh, you can't overlook this because they've had a history of guys being jerks, not being team players. But I think that 31 years old, if Mike Tomlin tells you show up for practice when TJ Watt shows up for practice and Cam Hayward shows up for practice, Jalen's going to show up for practice. I have a feeling that Mike Tomlin's not going to get undermined the way that I couldn't even imagine what a conversation between Jaylen Ramsey and Mike McDaniels is, but I could promise you it's not the same as Jaylen Ramsey and Mike Tomlin. I could promise you that. And I just think that works in the Steelers' favor. Again, if it isn't, massive mistake by the Steelers. You just got rid of all the nonsense to bring in more nonsense. That doesn't make any sense to me. But they have had a history of being able to control these guys a little bit more than outside of George Pickens, let's be totally honest, and be able to calm the airways before mass chaos exploded within the fan base and the news. I have a feeling they'll be able to do the same with Jalen. Good.
Yeah, I just think that one other point that seems very pertinent to this is that Jaylen Ramsey, much like Aaron Rodgers coming to the Steelers, it seems very focused on how good of a relationship they have with Mike Tomlin. So again, don't know what went on behind closed doors in Miami. Don't really know what the dynamics were like for the locker room and stuff like that. But it has been very, very publicly stated that Jaylen Ramsey wanted to come here because of Mike Tomlin's influence, because of his coaching stature. So if that is the case, if they have a good relationship and if it continues to build positively, why would he want to, again, kind of shit on it by just not showing up to practice? Or, I came here because I want to win a Super Bowl, didn't think I could do it in Miami, love this head coach, and then I'm just going to do whatever I want. Maybe he will, but I don't think, one, we'd hear about it until way too late, and 2, if they're winning games, it won't matter. And no. 3, I don't think it's going to happen. But
I agree. I think a veteran who understands the NFL, who's done this before, who didn't have, he had issues in Jacksonville, but again, in LA, you're winning and things are going pretty smooth. I think that's the example that I'm looking at when it comes to Jaylen Ramsey and where things go. All right, that's everything on our agenda today. Shout out to everybody so far who's applied for the good old medium Chubby's golf polo. We're going to take a quick break. On the other side of it, we're going to start answering all your questions. We'll be right back.
Pittsburgh, this one's for you. From the voices behind all Steelers talk comes Black and Gold apparel, your go-to for bold, fan-driven merch that reps the city, the Steelers, and everything in between. Whether you bleed black and gold or just love that Pittsburgh grit, we've got something for you. It's more than a podcast. It's a community. And thanks to your support, we're proud to bring the passion from our mics to your closets. Gear up, stand out, and show the world what real fans look like. Shop now at blackandgoldapparel.myshopify.com.
All righty. A shout out to all of our members. Shout out to all of our super chatters. Can't thank you guys enough for everything that you do for us. We got a quick one here from Dougie Fresh. What's the temperature in Pittsburgh? We're wearing long sleeves and sweaters in July now. Doug, you must not have been here for a while because our boy has shown up every single day in a sweatshirt. But it is, I mean, in the city of Pittsburgh right now, it could be 10 degrees or it could be pouring rain. It could be flooding outside or it could be 100 degrees. You never know. It honestly, all those things probably happen today and will happen once again. I have one complaint on the city of Pittsburgh that I have to make because I record a video and then just realize like I'm not going to post this on Twitter. I'm not a weirdo, but I'll express it here. You have a driveway, so you don't have to worry about this. I do not have a driveway. Street cleaning's a thing. Okay. The city of Pittsburgh, 2 complaints tied into one. The first one, the city of Pittsburgh stopped putting parking tickets on cars. They now just assume that you should know you got a parking ticket. And if you don't assume that you know you got a parking ticket, in a month and a half, you'll get a delinquent ticket letter. That means that you have to pay double for that ticket, which is complete bullshit. Let's be honest. It pisses me off every single time. But this is one of the small things that piss me off about the city of Pittsburgh. The second is easy. It is street cleaning tomorrow. I had to park 4 blocks away. 4 blocks. Because all of the blocks next to me also do street cleaning on the same day. Why would we not space these things out to make it easier to park? Wild times. Shout out the city of Pittsburgh, man. I don't get this place. I love it here. I'm not going anywhere, but my God, wild.
Frustrating
Absolutely.
stuff, man.
I'm going to tell you right now. Me and the city of Pittsburgh, we got some beef. I love it, but we've got some beef. Let's start with Maddie.
It's tough time. It's tough. It's tough out here, folks. All right. Thoughts and prayers for Noah.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Maddie, why aren't the halfbacks not practicing with Rodgers and the wide receivers? Good question. I think a lot of people are curious about why the Steelers running backs weren't there. I just think it was a wide receiver tight end situation. I just think that's what it was. I don't think they got the invite, to be really honest. If they did, chances were they would have been there, but it's like a lot of times that's the case. It's just a lot of wide receivers and quarterbacks just hanging out. Running backs kind of do their own thing. If you go to an NFL practice, the quarterbacks and the wide receivers spend a lot of time together. The running backs spend significantly less time with the other 2 positions. So I just think that's just the case. Aaron invited all the wide receivers and all the tight ends out because those are the guys that catch passes. And I just don't think anybody thought about it. I don't think it's something to be concerned about, though.
Huge rift in the locker room already. It is funny though, because I'm pretty sure Jaylen Warren, I saw that video. I don't know if we talked about this on here, but the video of him like pulling like a soccer goal attached to him while he was doing like wind sprints and then like working out in the ocean. I'm pretty sure he's in California doing those workouts. So it would be funny if that is true.
Jalen's in Utah.
Thank you.
But he's in the mountains of Utah. Every year he comes back, and that's the first thing I ask him. I say, Jaylen, did you spend the offseason in the mountains of Utah? He's like, oh, yeah. I'm like, dude, that's so awesome. That's so awesome. If
anyone hasn't seen the videos of him pulling a literal soccer net while he does wind sprints, probably worth finding.
Yeah, 100%. His rookie season, or his rookie into his sophomore season, he came back in and he was ripped. And I was like, dude, what did you do? And he said, I just found the biggest mountains I could find and I ran up them. I was like, you are a freak of nature, pal. This is crazy. Jalen's the man, dude. Anybody who ever gets a chance to listen to an interview, have a conversation with them, Jaylen is the dude. I'm not worried about them being there, but I understand the question. I definitely get the question. I bet a lot of people are asking the same thing. I just think it's it's just a wide receiver quarterback connection thing. Running backs, they have different workouts, and I think that's why they aren't there. That's why they aren't there. Maddie, once again here, hot take Tuesday. We are not Super Bowl contenders. We look the same as we did last year. We have added older vets on both sides. We didn't address the wide receiver position. How does this scream contenders? I will say, Maddie, I agree with you. It is a hot take for sure. The Steelers got younger on the defensive side of the ball with guys like Jack Sawyer, guys like Derek Harmon, guys like Y.E. Black. I think that at some point it's going to work out where Brandon Echols is a better option as a backup at corner than anybody else that they've had. Darius Slay, Jaylen Ramsey, I get those guys, but they're also, places where you were either going to add another veteran or you were going to go extremely young if I had to guess, the Steelers wanted DJ Reed and couldn't afford him, so they went with the Darius Slay. Minka's a guy, I mean, I get it, 2 years younger, but like, nah, if you could get better production, who cares? He's going to be here for the same amount of time as Minka was going to be. On the offensive side of the ball, you got older at quarterback, I agree, but you got younger at running back. You got younger at wide receiver, which I think is good as well, because yeah, Robert Woods is there, but he's not your wide receiver 2. Right now, your wide receiver 2 is expected to be Calvin Austin and Roman Wilson. George Pickens is not a wide receiver 1, so at least you went out and got one in DK Metcalf. Pat Fryermuth's still here, and you expanded your offensive line so that your offensive line could be all young guys. So I don't think they got super old. I also think that they look significantly I mean, Larry Ogunjobi replaced with Derek Harmon, massive upgrade. Darius Slay over Dante Jackson, any day of the week, I'd take that. Jaylen Ramsey over Minka, I would just say, go look at the stats. Jalen's got better stats. Okay, maybe it's an upgrade, maybe it's not. There's an argument to be made. DK George, argument for both sides, but I still don't think George and his issues were worth not getting rid of. Jalen and Caleb over Jalen and Najee any day of the week. Any day of the week, I would take that, and I would take Aaron over Russell Wilson without blinking an eye. That's where I go there. You feel different?
Not entirely. I do think they are improved compared to last year. I will defend Maddie in the sense that I do think there's a very legitimate argument to make for this team not being a Super Bowl contender right now. I think because they have some holes in the secondary and at wide receiver, as Maddie points out, and because the offensive line remains you and I are very high on the offensive line as a unit, but it does remain a question mark and maybe the biggest X factor of the team's success this upcoming year. So because of all that, I think there is an argument that isn't a doesn't become a crazy hot take that the Steelers aren't Super Bowl contenders right now. I think they're good, and I think they had the chance to be Super Bowl contenders, but I think they're, kind of straddling that edge, straddling that line. So I'll defend Maddie a little bit there.
I agree. Do you think that they're more or Super Bowl contenders than they are last year?
They're closer this year than last year, and I think it really just comes down to Aaron Rodgers, unfortunately.
Oh, it definitely does. It definitely, but it comes down to the offensive lines too. But it does come down to Aaron. But last year, if it came down to Russ, man, sorry, but it wasn't it. It wasn't it. Vic here. Noah, aren't you worried if TJ isn't signed by training camp, he won't be there? I don't expect TJ Watt to be at the start of training camp unless he signs a deal beforehand. I don't expect him to sign a deal before the start of training camp. I am not worried about it. I'm not. We hit September, I'm worried. Until September, I'm not worried. Again, everything and things change in the NFL constantly. In a blink of an eye, something could change. But every conversation, it's not even conversations anymore. Like it's just an expectation. It's no longer hey, what's going on? Are things getting crazy? It's just status quo. And status quo is the Pittsburgh Steelers expect to sign TJ Watt. TJ Watt expects to sign a deal with the Pittsburgh Steelers, and they're working through it. It's not great, but they're working through it. And I still expect the deal to get done. What's your deadline for worry with TJ Watt not showing up?
It's the day after the New York Jets game to open the regular season.
Day after,
seriously. And I know that's like a crazy deadline.
That's a hot take. I'm listening.
Yeah, that's a hot take. But look, I just that would be the first time that I legitimately am like, oh man, okay, there's something very much in the way of this deal getting done. It's not just two sides playing hardball anymore, disagreeing over guaranteed money, whatever the dispute that's, in the way right now actually is. Until that happens, we can get to training camp. I don't expect him to even participate if he were to sign an extension. And if he was, he would do very, very little. So that's not a worry for me. If we go into the end of July, no deal, go through August, fine. Once we get after that first game, yeah, now I'm worried. But I think the Steelers still have 2 months and until I'm actually worried that they are going to move on from him and not get a deal done.
Okay. Okay. The day after the Jets game would be insanity. Would I be worried by then? Yeah, I think I'd be a little panic stricken as a fan. But I expected the day before. It's the day before.
The Jets game.
Yeah, I think he gets signed. Look at Dak Prescott signed in Cleveland. Okay. Like Dak Prescott was he was on the plane and they were like, all right, I think this deal so you could strap up this weekend. I would like if that happened with TJ, great. But that brings up this next question from Asada Burrito. If Parsons, Hendrickson, and Watt waiting to see where the new market might be, and if so, who do you think blinks first? I think it's TJ. I think TJ blinks first. Jerry Jones is unanimously known to wait as long as humanly possible to sign somebody. This is what he does. That's why Micah doesn't care. Like Micah's all over his podcast and everything else, just being like, yeah, man, things will be fine. Why? Because he fully understands he plays for the Dallas Cowboys. They're going to pay him. He's worth getting paid. And it's going to happen just at the nick of time. I don't know if Trey Hendrickson's going to get paid. I have no idea. The Cincinnati Bengals are a laughing stock when it comes to their finances. And there's nothing you could say otherwise to convince me that they aren't a laughing stock with their finances. And TJ is the only one that I know is going to get signed. I'm pretty confident is going to get signed. And the Steelers aren't looking to draw this thing out as long as possible. They just need to come to the conclusion that TJ is worth $41 million a year. And I think that's going to happen first. I think he's going to be the first of the three to sign. And I think the bigger part of this is if he's not, it looks way worse. It gets so much worse. If Micah signs for $42 million a year, if Trey Hendrickson signs for $41 million a year, TJ Watt's price just went up. And at that point, there is cause for concern because TJ is not worth Micah money, but TJ is worth Trey Hendrickson money, and he's going to want Micah money. And it's not going to, I think that causes a rift. I do.
Yeah, I would be just absolutely shocked if Micah Parsons is the first of this trio to sign an extension because I think he's quite literally waiting for TJ Watt's numbers to come in to see how much more that moves the needle compared to Myles Garrett because he'll top out the market regardless of what happens. So I think I do agree with you, Noah. I think TJ's most likely to sign first. And that's solely because like this Trey Hendrickson thing does not seem to be going well and seems to be in a much, 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 much worse place than the Steelers are with TJ Watt. So I would be shocked if he even signs a deal with the Cincinnati Bengals.
Yes.
So yeah, I think TJ Watt's going to be the first one to sign. I anticipate it happening before week 1 against the Jets, maybe September 1st or 2nd, let's just call it. I can see this going a little closer to the wire, and every day that passes without a deal done, I kind of get further entrenched in that belief. So then I go Watt, nothing to do with Hendrickson, and then I think Micah Parsons will go, 45 plus a year after TJ Watt signs for something in between that.
I agree, which is another question. We're just adding on here. I'm not even going to try it. So what is the asking price for TJ Watt? I would believe that TJ Watt goes for a second and change. That's what I think you'd get for TJ Watt. Do I think the Steelers would trade him for a second and change? No. But I think that is the starting offer for TJ Watt. I would imagine it's a second round pick and some change. And that's not good.
Yeah. And if this question is in reference to like what
earlier
Sarah was saying earlier, like he didn't say verbatim like a second round pick gets it done, but he made it very clear that a first round pick would not be offered to the Steelers. So my takeaway from that was like a second round pick is the going rate for an edge rusher, which is I think Noah and I are in agreement on is a woefully insufficient offer for TJ Watt. So
woefully.
Second round pick, no.
Yeah, I agree. Cody Silva here. Squad up on COD, emailed the gamer tag. I gotta get back on. I haven't played video games in a minute because of all the chaos that has been this summer. But you got to understand though, before I make a commitment here, which first I got to make a commitment, but I am bad at COD. Like I play it with the pals. We have a good time. Me and the boys, great time, but I am awful. I'm not like remotely good. I'm not even remotely okay. I'm gonna bring your team down. Like if I finished with 2 kills, it's a great day for me. I had a good game, I got the boys carrying, the brothers carrying me all the time, but it's not a good time. Zombies. We'll get into some zombies, dude. I could play zombies all day, but no. You play COD? You a video game guy?
Not a ton, not a COD guy. I'd probably be worse than Noah in that regard. I think I would most likely just be more of a hindrance than a help. Happy to watch, happy to support everybody as they do the killings on the COD. But no, I'm not a big video gamer. And when I do play any video games, it's mostly like sports ones. Most of my gaming experiences are board games and role-playing games like Dungeons and Dragons. So
I played Dungeons and Dragons at my brother's bachelor party, and it was my brother themed. It was a good time. I think the group I was in was like a little bit too drunk, where it wasn't like, you know what I mean? Like we went upstairs and we were like already through it, and the other group of guys was like halfway through it. And they're like, what did you do? I was like, we just killed everybody. Like everybody, anybody who showed up, we were just like, what do you want to do? I want to kill them. Like, that's what I want to do. So maybe I'll try it again. I like that one. All right. Deacon here, Deacon DJ. How can I get an AST hat? Go to, first off, the shop link is in our YouTube, youtube.com/allsteelerstalk. It should be right there, but it's blackandgoldapparel.myshopify.com for one of these bad boys. We also have t-shirts, hoodies. I know everybody's asking for a polo. I'm trying really hard to get a polo, but I'm like, I have to find a polo that's not expensive, because the ones that the company we use now, the cheapest polo I could find is like $45 for you guys before shipping. That's ridiculous. I'm not charging people $45 for a freaking golf polo. So once I could get that thing below 30, we're going to have a good time. I just gotta find it, gotta figure, and it's gotta be high quality. I'm not telling you guys crap, you know? So hats, shirts, sweatshirts, we got it all on blackandgoldapparel.myshopify.com. Appreciate you. Lifted Ones, happy birthday to the Steelers and myself. First off, happy birthday, my dude. Hope you enjoyed it. Happy birthday to the Pittsburgh Steelers. July 8th. What a weird day to announce a football team, right? Pittsburgh's all about just making what are the chances it was raining on the day that they announced it?
100% chance it was. Art Rooney down in the first ward of Pittsburgh making this announcement that it will change the landscape of Pittsburgh in pouring down rain. No doubt about it.
Dude, that's so funny. So funny. Heard at practice here. Did I miss something changing with the show? Second time in 2 weeks, I have a super chat ignored. Don't mean to ignore you at all, my friend. To be honest, they're not in here. So there's no super chat of the only super chat we've had so far is Cody Silva from what I can see. So don't know if it's on my end or your end. But I definitely don't mean to ignore you. Definitely do not mean to ignore you, but toss it in here. Don't super chat again. Just toss your question, and I definitely want to answer it for sure. Maddie, was Minka part of the problem towards the back half of last season when guys were calling each other? No, I don't know who it was. I was told by a couple of guys that it was a group, a collective of people that had it out here or that had issues and were misplaced. Cam was probably one of them. I would imagine Minka was one of them, but I was told, and this is just a report, and this is from players, that Mike Tomlin brought the defense in, had a defensive meeting, sat everybody down, and was like, hey, this is you out of place. This is you out of place. And there were like 9 dudes that he called out in this meeting. So I think it was a little bit of everybody. I don't think it was Minka. I do think Minka had some moments for sure. I also think he was trying to play hero ball at times where he knew other guys were going to be out of place and he couldn't trust them and he's trying to do too much and that hurt him. But I'm not putting it on Minka. I think last year I tried, but I don't think I'm putting my blame on Minka. Do you?
No, I view the second half breakdown of the Steelers defense as a collective failure because just as easily as you can point to Minka sort of being caught out of position or maybe trying to make up for other players not being in position and being caught unaware because of that, you can also easily point to, TJ Watt's ineffectiveness down the stretch and inability to get to the quarterback and the defense's inability to make any adjustments to try to help free him up to sort of get that edge rush back in sort of a meaningful part of their defense. So you had that, you had defensive issues as well, like Joey Porter Jr. not really getting the turnovers, still having problems with penalties. No one was really forcing turnovers. So, all of that put together, it seems like more of a collective failure than just maybe one player who was causing more of these issues. And I think we saw a lot of the blame game going around towards the end of last season where no one wanted to say directly who was being a problem, but no one really wanted to take accountability for it either. So we saw a lot of blame passing and sharing and stuff like that. So no, not just on Minka, but he certainly wasn't part of the solution.
I agree. I definitely agree. I think there were Deshaun Elliott was caught at some times. Dante Jackson was caught a couple of times. Cam, I think, was the worst of them. But I don't think I'm putting all the blame on Minka. Cody Silva here. If teams were calling me for TJ Watt, I'd give them the most ridiculous names: TJ for Chase, for Jamar Chase, Joe Burrow, and T. Higgins, TJ for Justin Herbert, Ladd McConkey, and Omari and Hampton. I agree. Like, I don't know. I don't know what I would trade TJ for, but I would start with the most wild offer. I'd just be, hey, you want TJ Watt? Patrick Mahomes sounds great. That sounds like a really good trade. And then just work from there. But understand that I want big bucks here. I don't want nothing. Problem is, it's not going to trade. It's not going to change. You know what I mean? Not gonna happen.
Yeah, I agree with you. I would definitely go for that sort of like anchoring method of being like, yeah, it's got to be 14 first round picks plus $250 million. And then and like hang up. That would be like my first offer for a TJ Watt trade. And then you have to just go from there because eventually they're going to budge at, a Jamar Chase, and 11 first round picks because you stuck to your guns. But yeah, I think also by doing that, the Steelers are probably, I just don't think the Steelers, to be real for a second, I just can't imagine the Steelers even putting out any names in a conversation like that because there's just nothing or no one that would cause the Steelers to actually pull the trigger on a trade aside from TJ Watt specifically saying it's time to move on.
I agree. Unless TJ says it's over, I just don't think it's over. I apologize. I'm trying to find Heard of Practice's comment here somewhere. It's really bugging me that this was not caught somewhere. And I would imagine it's StreamYard being StreamYard, if we're going to be totally honest. But I hope he's still here, and I hope that he tosses his comment in here for us to read. Dougie Fresh, appreciate you, my guy. Got any of them Jacob P sweaters? If so, if in, so that is a fire sweater, my friend. That is.
Thank you. I'll find out where it is from. I'll find out where it's from.
Sweatshirt? No,
it's a sweatshirt. Yeah. It's a crew neck sweatshirt.
It's a nutty. That's where I come from. They're called nutties.
That's a better term.
I hope this is what it is. He said that a trade will never happen without a first for TJ. I agree. On the Steelers side of things, there's no chance that the Pittsburgh Steelers would give up anything less than a first round pick for TJ Watt. Like they shouldn't. If they do, I'm pretty upset about it. Like, I think you've immediately lost that trade. Even if TJ continued to be on the side of things where like 12 and a half, 13 and a half sacks, I still think you are in a bad place where you didn't win that one. And this one was correct. That was the super chat. Shout out to Her to Practice. I apologize, my friend. I really don't know what's going on here, but this is 2 weeks in a row where you've said you better know, and they're all popping up. Like, they all immediately go into the super chat. So I don't know why they are actually, to be honest with you, this one didn't go into the super chat. So maybe we're having issues. Maybe StreamYard. If I miss your super chat, you let us know and I will make up for it. I promise. Roger Steeler says trade Watt and Calvin Austin to Washington for Scary Terry and a second. All right, so going back to the TJ for the first from Her to Practice, aka Stephen Cornfield. You trade TJ for a first. It shouldn't trade TJ for a first. For a quality player in a second, I'm not saying would it happen. I'm asking, do you feel better about it if that's the outcome?
Not with this specific trade package as the return, but yes, in the hypothetical of what would I prefer the Steelers get back in a trade for TJ Watt, it would have to be some sort of elite player plus some other asset. Wide receiver being a position of need, sure, Scary Terry fits the bill. This particular trade does not do much for me, but I guess we are kind of in the ballpark of what that trade package would have to look like. But again, I feel like I've been pretty demonstrative in the fact that like you'd have to blow me away and then some for a TJ Watt trade to make any sense. So not this one doesn't work for me, but I get the
if you removed Calvin Austin, would you make it happen?
No, it still doesn't because I have this impossible bar for who that elite player would have to be in return for the Steelers, because I just cannot view TJ Watt any other way, and I don't understand how a trade would net equal value back to the Steelers by parting with an elite player like TJ Watt and bringing back someone who is good. It just doesn't compute for me. It doesn't compute.
To me, there is and I went through them. To me, there is such a small list of guys that I feel is worth, like, you have to be so confident that the guy you replace TJ Watt with makes you a better Super Bowl contender than what you have with TJ Watt. Like, it has to. And I just think that list is so short, and I don't think a wide receiver's on that list. I don't. If Justin Jefferson shows up, all right, cool. But Justin Jefferson didn't win a playoff game last year. So maybe that's not the case. I just have a hard time thinking that's what would have to happen. Smootest Buddhist, hot take: an injury-prone linebacker pushing 30 won't be worth much in a trade. I can see a third-round pick for TJ realistically, even giving everything he does for the Steelers. I mean, maybe that is what the trade is. Maybe that's what they would be willing to give. I think it'd be wild for the Pittsburgh Steelers to give up TJ Watt for a third-round pick. There's just no world where I would feel comfortable with TJ Watt for a third-round pick. I'm serious. I just would not, by no means, give up TJ Watt for a third in any universe.
Yeah, that'd be a bad trade. I can see it from other teams' perspectives. And I don't think that if I was pursuing TJ Watt in a trade before an extension was in place, I would not be willing to part with significant trade assets to get him to the organization. But man, that would be just a colossal failure from the Steelers if they got a third-round pick for the best edge rusher on their team since 2017.
Yes, I agree. Bernard here. Where does Aaron Rodgers rank on your all's all-time quarterback list? Not super high. Not super low, though. My top five: Tom Brady, Patrick Mahomes, John Elway, Peyton Manning. I go John Elway at 5. People get really mad at me about John Elway at 5. I go John Elway at 5. I think Brett Favre could be up there, but I also think Dan Marino should be in that conversation. I think after that, there's a conversation for Aaron, maybe. I don't think he's that high on that list, but I think there's a conversation to be had. But I think after that first 6, I'm like, I think a lot of those guys are up for debate. I think the Drew Brees, I think the Aaron Rodgers, I think, they might be the two. They might be the two.
Yeah, I really think behind Tom Brady and Pat Mahomes, you just have a hodgepodge of quarterbacks who really are all deserving from 3 to 10. Yes. And then after that, I think Aaron Rodgers starts to get into my conversation. So I think anywhere between 11 and 20 feels good for me. But I mean, yeah, it's hard for me to definitively separate a a John Elway, a Dan Marino, much beyond like, yeah. So yeah, I think it's hard for me to even get into it. So I'm going to stick with Tom Brady 1, Pat Mahomes 2. After that, it's just a big old question mark, and then we find Aaron Rodgers somewhere in the teens.
yeah. I think that's I'd have to break it down, but I do think like the early teens, like in that 11 to 15 range is pretty good. Like the list that came out the other day where like Josh Allen was like 14, Ben was 15 is ridiculous to me. But Aaron at like 13, I felt pretty okay with. I was like, that's not a bad spot. But like you have the Terry Bradshaws. Like there are names out there that you have to consider that I'd have to sit down and really think about it. But Aaron's in the early teens. I like that answer. Aaron is in the early teens for sure. Nate Moore here. If Minkah outplays Ramsey next season, did the Steelers lose the trade? Great question.
If Jonnu Smith is not a contributor in any sort of impactful way, then 100% they lose the trade. If Jonnu Smith puts up 800 yards again, but Minkah Fitzpatrick has, 4 interceptions to 2 interceptions for Jaylen Ramsey, I don't view that as a loss for the Steelers. I'd probably view it as a net win for the Pittsburgh Steelers, or canceled out at the worst case scenario. So yeah, unfortunately, it's not the evaluation of who wins and loses this trade does not solely hinge on Jaylen Ramsey's performance or Minkah's performance in Miami. Jonnu Smith can really sway this one way or the other, because if he's a huge factor, then the Steelers look like they made out like gangbusters on this deal.
Yeah. Yes. That's the fact. And that's a great point, is if Jonnu Smith is a stud, the Steelers won. And there's no question to it. But if Jonnu Smith is nothing and Minkah's a stud, conversation to be had for sure. And I like trades like that. I like definitive guy for guy who has a better deal trade. And who did Miami use with Minkah? Was that Tua? Was it Tua that they used for the Minkah pick? No, it wasn't, because it was late in the first round. It was like the 20th pick in the draft or something. Mm-hmm. And it wasn't Minkah. It wasn't worth Minkah. Whoever it was, it wasn't worth Minkah. It wasn't worth Minkah. Wes, Noah, and Jacob, I've been a Steelers fan for 45 years, and this is the first offseason that feels like we are flailing. Is there any part of you that feels the same? Thanks for what you do, as always. Appreciate you, my man. Yeah, I think the Steelers are showing a little bit of desperation, for sure. Do I think I'm worried about it? Not yet. I think it's kind of needed. I think they're doing it in a way that is appropriate. It would be one thing if you traded the house. Like if you trade TJ Watt, there's a concern. But if you traded Minkah for Darius Slay, yeah, all right, let's have a conversation about what's going on in the future here. But the Steelers haven't done anything to this point that makes you say that the future is in jeopardy, because it's not. Like Minkah had 2 years left on his deal. He wasn't going to get extended after those 2 years. He was gone after those 2 years. Jaylen and Jonnu are here for 2 years, which means you've just evened out. That's what you did. You look at a guy like Aaron Rodgers here for a year. You protected yourself for a first-round quarterback next year. DK's here long-term. Calvin's here. Roman's here. Jonnu's here for 2 years. Pat's signed. Your offensive line's cheap. It just feels like the Steelers have done a lot of moves that are big and splashy, but at the same time, still gear themselves towards like we are protecting our future along with now. And I think that's, to me, it's desperation in the right way. It's they're protecting themselves while still trying to make plays for right now. Do you feel different?
No, I think flailing is a good word, but sometimes flailing leads to treading water is kind of how I view this situation. Like, yeah, this has been a very different, it's been a departure of an offseason for the Steelers. I will certainly concede that, Wes. And it does give me concern in some ways, because what if they just chose the absolute worst path? That possibility still exists. I think they are going all out in such a different way to try to win this year, but it's salvaged by the fact that they haven't sacrificed and mortgaged the future to make this year happen. Now, if they had done all of that, my bar is a little bit different from Noah's, where like if they were giving up all of these 2026 picks in order to facilitate these moves for this year, I would be like, okay, Tomlin's coaching for his job. Omar Khan is, dealing for his job as well. But I think they just have this very clear directive of trying to win, which comes off as sort of desperate this year, but they're going all in a way we haven't seen over the last few years prior, which really sticks out. But no, I don't think it's I don't think they're drowning. I think they are trying to tread water.
Tread water is a good word. Tread water is a good word. I'm going to be honest. Steven, I found your comment. And I don't know why it didn't get super chatted. I don't know why it didn't get super chatted last time. I apologize. I owe you one. I'll shoot you an email for sure. You know I got you. Mike Lang here. Would you guys say that Martavis Bryant was the Steelers' best number 2 wide receiver? Would you sign Justin Simmons if Ramsey is slated to take snaps at safety? I would still sign Justin Simmons. I think having depth is always the best thing to have. Mm-hmm. I also think Martavis Bryant is I think Juju Smith-Schuster is the best wide receiver 2 the Steelers have had since Mike Wallace, since AB was wide receiver 2 to Mike Wallace. Like that's Emmanuel Sanders was up there, but I think Juju had Emmanuel Sanders edged out by the time he left. I would go Juju. I think Juju at his peak was the best one they had.
Juju's a good choice. Was Plexico number 2 to Hines Ward?
Oh, if we're talking ever, it's Hines.
How far back we go? I didn't
it's,
see a time frame here, Noah.
Dude, if you're going all the way back, I mean, you just go to the Lynn Swan days and
him and Stallworth.
Yeah, you say Stallworth's the greatest number 2 potentially in the history of the NFL. Like
that's
you know, if you're going all, but if we're going recent, if we're going since Martavis was there in the Martavis realm, I would say Juju. Was the guy. But yeah, you got the Plaxico or Hines, whoever you were going to name there as your number 1, number 2. It doesn't even matter. Then you had AB was a number 2, and I mean clearly a stud. Obviously, you had the 70s, which you know there was a third one too. Why am I blanking on the third? It's why am I blanking on the 70s wide receivers here? Why am I blanking on who the third guy is?
Behind Stallworth and Swan, I honestly have no idea.
Man, I don't know. Somebody's got to toss it in the chat because I am blanking real hard on it. But there, you got to go way back. But in the Martavis days, it is. I mean, my vote's Juju. My vote would be Juju.
Yeah. Keeping it recent, I think Juju's a great pick. He was incredible in his role.
All right, I'm looking up the Steelers wide receivers in the 70s here. No.
You're talking about on the Super Bowl teams?
Yeah. It was Stallworth, Lynn Swan, and there was a third one, man. There was a third one. Oh, sure. Look, there it is. Lewis Lips. There was Rand Shanklin. There were names. All right, let's keep it trucking here because I can go through these forever. Enigma After Dark member for 3 months. Shout out. Since we're doing hot take, we give TJ a long-term extension and he breaks Cam Hayward's record for longest tenured defensive player for the Pittsburgh Steelers. Man, that would have to, I mean, if he signs and he stays, Cam will be 36 by the time he heads out. I don't think TJ. Do you think TJ plays till he's 36? Do you think TJ would finish out a contract if he signed a 5-year deal?
Ooh, man, I'd like to say yes, but I have a hard time seeing him playing after 35. I think there's just, if he keeps it up for 3 more seasons, what an accomplished career he'll have had. And maybe there's some playoff wins, some team success in there to kind of fill out the rest of the Hall of Fame resume. But yeah, if he signs a 5-year contract, I would be very surprised to see him play the entirety of it out. I think 3 or 4 years is probably the most we're going to see out of TJ Watt.
Yeah. I think you give him 3, and then my expectations for him to continue would be, which is wild to think you might have 3 more years of TJ Watt. Absolutely nuts, actually, to think that one. Mm-hmm. Chris, guys, if we are really all in, I am less concerned about the wide receivers and much more worried about swing tackle and offensive line depth. Our line makes or breaks us. I agree. Go get a swing tackle. The biggest unheralded, non-talked about hole on the Pittsburgh Steelers is the fact that if Broderick Jones sucks, they are screwed. There is no questions to it. You are now left tackleless for a 41-year-old quarterback.
Mm-hmm.
That's awful. That's the last thing you could have happen if you are the Pittsburgh Steelers. So, yeah, I do. I think it's the most untalked about, concerning hole the Steelers have, and that's because they filled it. It's Calvin Anderson. He's going to be the guy. Maybe Dylan Cook sneaks his way in there, but you gave Calvin Anderson a 2-year deal. That tells me he's the guy. Do I think he's worth being the guy? No, but that's what the Steelers are going to do with it.
It is indeed the most overlooked part of this team. That is probably where they are the weakest. And it's not, I like Calvin Anderson. I think Dylan Cook has, maybe something to grow into. It just is very concerning that, I'm a supporter of Broderick Jones as well, and I feel like he's going to have a good year. But man, it just takes one injury or just, a poor stretch, and all of a sudden this entire season implodes. So yeah, I think I fully agree with just the offensive line maybe being an area that the Steelers need to strengthen before addressing other areas of need. I think that could maybe get them to, compensate for any other sort of deficiencies in the roster if that offensive line is just not a worry all season long.
Yes, like Broderick got hurt on the same play Roman Wilson did, and it affected him all season long. That's all it takes. One bad elbow, boom, season's done, and you don't have a left tackle. I agree. Steelers' unluckiest reindeer. I still love this name. Noah, do you think bringing in Jonnu is a threat to Pat for the number 1 tight end spot? Who do you think the Steelers stick with after the season? I do think it's an untalked about situation here, that I don't think Pat's going anywhere, but I do think if Pat doesn't play well this season, that there's reasons to move on from him. If you have Jonnu and he's got trade value, do I think the Steelers should? No, I like Pat. I think Pat's really good. I am a guy that a year ago pounded the table to sign Pat because you were going to mess up and not sign him soon enough, and he was going to have a good year. He didn't have a good year because his quarterback couldn't see him, but I think Pat's phenomenal, and I think he's got so much left in the tank that is untapped. I look at Pat Freiermuth and Jonnu Smith and say Arthur Smith loves Jonnu Smith a lot. He's coming off a better season. There's definitely a conversation to be had there. Definitely a conversation to be had.
Yeah, I think the Steelers will say that it's, about improving the offense in general. It will be, a sort of team sort of a message, but I think there is maybe an unspoken competition for who will be the tight end here in 2026. I don't think that's a crazy thing to suggest, because I don't see how both are going to play and produce as number 1 tight ends, but you're paying both to be number 1 tight ends. So I think something's going to have to give eventually. I don't know, this all hinges on how good they both perform, how well they both play in 2025, but I think it's more of a possibility than, a sort of out there hot take.
Yeah, it really is. It certainly is. Nate Moore here. Odds TJ plays on the last year of his contract. I wouldn't say zero. I have heard, just like others have heard, that the Steelers' worst case scenario in this is that he plays on the last year of his deal and they franchise tag him next year, which I think is crazy. But I have heard it, and I have not. I'm not just pulling out of thin air here. It's a real conversation that has been had, and I would say the odds are not zero.
Yeah, unfortunately I do agree. I think it is more likely that he plays on the last year of his contract and gets franchise tagged than the Steelers would trade him. So I think because of that, I have to say it's not zero either. It's I don't think it's going to happen, but let's call it like 7.3%.
7 small percentage. I like it. Bernard here. Mike Florio doesn't want Rodgers on the Pat McAfee show. Mike Florio, man, could say whatever he wants. Mike Tomlin's never listened to that guy a day in his life. I promise you. There's a small list of guys, probably a giant list, but there is definitely a list I have heard few names on, that some within the NFL really, really do not like. And let's just say a name that's potentially in this comment is on that list, very high up that list, especially in the city of Pittsburgh. So I don't think Aaron or anybody else is worried about Mike Florio and what he has to say. But I like the comment. Justin Gordon here. We are acting like B. Jones can be any worse than than Broderick Jones could be any more worse than Dan Moore, who gave up the most sacks in the entire NFL. I think Broderick is going to hold up just fine. I want to make that clear too. Like I agree with that. Like I don't think Broderick is the wrong choice at left tackle. I think he's the perfect choice at right tackle. Our left tackle. You've invested into this. He's a former first round pick. You've waited to put him at the right position. I agree. Like I think he is the move that you put there, and it's a good investment. But I also think that he hasn't played well to start his NFL career. And if that's the case this season, you're in trouble, because I have less questions about Zach Frazier and Troy Fautanu, and Mason McCormick plays guard. So big issue, but like less of an issue. You also have other options there. I just think Broderick is the biggest what if that the Steelers offensive line presents. Two things. One, I love Broderick as a person, dude. He's so awesome. He's always friendly. He is super professional. He's a great teammate. Like Broderick is the guy. And I think Broderick has a ton of talent. It's just about putting it on the field and being a step forward. But I agree. Like, I don't think Broderick gets benched this year. You know, he'd have to be really bad to get benched. And I just don't think he's going to be really bad. But I do think, like you said, like anything could happen, and it's the most important position on your offense outside of quarterback, and you don't have a backup plan. And I think that's concerning. Like I do think that's concerning.
God, yeah, you stated it perfectly. I think I'm rooting for Broderick. I just think that the questions have to be asked about what his performance will bring. But I am hoping that he answers and settles any questions and debates regarding his performance once games start being played. But beyond all that, I am certainly rooting for him. It took all of 3 minutes to really endear himself to me whenever I talked with him at mini camp. Like the dude seems incredible. I hope he has a ton of success this year. That's different from what you've seen on the field so far, but we'll see when training camp comes around. I think all eyes are on him in more ways than one.
Yeah, definitely. But I don't think he's in danger of losing his job, and I just don't. I think he's the right move at left tackle. It's just you need backup plans at important positions, and the Steelers don't. Yeah, they don't have it. All right, two more here. Good old Milton. Noah, do you think that this season is a make or break season for Patrick Queen? No. Yes. In the Steelers' eyes, yes. I think in his NFL career, no. But Steelers aren't going to bring him back if he's not great this year. They've shown that. They give guys 1 year usually. Him, that's 2. I have a lot of faith in Patrick Queen. I think he's good. I think he could take a step forward this year. But I think the offensive line in front of him the defensive line in front of him is going to help a ton. But yeah, it is definitely make or break for Patrick Queen in Pittsburgh.
For sure. Yeah, I think he's kind of fighting a losing battle, to be perfectly honest. I think he's going to have to be especially outstanding in 2025 to, hang on to the starting role in 2026 and beyond. I think the Steelers are just that high on Peyton Wilson, sort of seeing what he can do, that it's going to take a lot to bump them off of their plans moving forward.
Yeah, for sure. And then we'll finish it off with our boys, Stephen Cornfield, hurt at practice. Hot take, the defensive roster, despite the names and talent, will crumble this year. And Terrell Austin is the first coach on the hot seat. Terrell Austin, I think if the it stinks because I love TA, man. He is awesome. He always brings a smile to my face. You'll meet him more this year. Like, he's the dude, man. He's the dude. I don't think he has a job in 2026 unless they're unbelievable. Like, it's the last year of his contract. It just doesn't, to me, it just feels like a natural, okay, let's change some things up. Again, he'd have to be the defense would have to be so good this year to make up for the struggles that they've had in the last couple of years. I don't think it's going to happen. I would say TA's already, to be honest, I think TA's already on the hot seat. I think he is.
Yeah. I mean, the entire defense is on the hot seat. And I think, that's even lend itself to asking if Mike Tomlin's, how secure Mike Tomlin's job is, not to be too sort of like dramatic about that question. But yeah, I think TA is already on the hot seat. I think this defense is under immense pressure to perform and improve upon what they did in 2024. And if they don't, there's going to be repercussions. If it all goes down the crapper, I could see anything being on the table as far as changes being made. But yeah, if this defense, is a bottom 15 defense, bottom half of the league defense, Tara Lawson's going to get fired, unfortunately.
Yeah.
And I don't say that with any joy, much in the same way as I don't
Nope.
find any joy in asking questions about Broderick Jones's place, So
Yes,
it stinks. It sucks because they're all such great people for the most part. But his job is certainly on the line this year if they underperform.
yeah, I think it's done. But I agree with you. I just don't think you bring him back, and at that point, you just you move on to the next guy that's going to be just a signal caller for Mike Tomlin. That's what you do there. That's what you do. All right. With that said, we're heading out of here, guys. Thank you so much for jumping on to another episode of All Steelers Talk. Make sure to subscribe to us on YouTube, youtube.com/All Steelers Talk. Make sure that you're going to fill out, and I don't even know what the word would be, but enter would be the word to win the medium Chubby's golf polo here at All Steelers Talk. That link is in our community page on YouTube, youtube.com/All Steelers Talk. Check us out anywhere you get your podcasts. And as always, find all of our work at si.com/NFL/Steelers. We will be back tomorrow. Also, make sure you're calling into the call-in show tomorrow. That'll air roughly noon, as long as YouTube doesn't hate me again, but we'll figure it out. It's a good one here in the Berg. Enjoy it. We'll be back tomorrow. Peace.